Welcome to the channel and welcome to this chunky knit look off-shoulder sweater tutorial. For this project I used approximately 900 meters of Aran weight yarn for a European size medium. The recommended hook size was 5mm and I used a 5.5mm hook throughout. If you're on Instagram, do follow for announcements and previews of future designs, and if your account is set to public, please do tag at Westcott Crochet on any pictures of your Westcott Crochet projects. To begin, you need to work a chain for the length of the sweater, starting at the underarm point. Okay, so starting with a 5.5mm hook, a slip knot, and a chain the length that I think I need. Okay, so I deliberately said work a chain as long as you think you need, because we're going to take that number of chains, put that into a calculator, click plus 25%, and then work extra chains to work up to that number. And the reason being, your work is going from side to side as opposed to up and down, and it's going to shrink, it's going to lose some height. So you need to add on 25% extra to make sure that you end up with something the length that you actually want. Okay, I can't show you the whole thing at once because it doesn't fit on camera, but here's the top of my chain, just lined up against the panel that I've already worked. If I just slide this up, without catching the chain, you can just see how much extra chain I have compared to the length of my panel, and this is the same number of chains, so you can see there's quite a lot of height lost. I have my chain now, my full chain, and I'm going to chain an extra one, which is kind of a turn chain, but not really. I'm actually going to work in that turn chain. The pattern is a 2-row repeat. It's a double crochet row and a kind of a beefed up slip stitch row, and we're starting with that beefed up slip stitch row. So when we're working up the slip stitch rows, we do need to use the first chain to start the stitch. So what you're going to do is extra chain, as I say, and going through both loops of that chain, the top loops, and pull back a loop. Might just have to hold that on there. In through the next stitch, which is the actual first stitch. Same again, top loops I'm going through, and pull back a loop. And then you're just going to grab these at the bottom here, take the last loop and pull it through the other two. And now going forward, we start in the last stitch that we've just worked, pull back a loop into a fresh stitch. Might just have to nudge these on this first row. Pull back a loop. Again, you might want to give them a tug just for this first row and pull that through. So one more time. The old spot that you just worked. The new spot for your second pull through. 3 loops on, pull number 1 through 2 and 3. And just work that way the whole way through, the whole way down, so I say. So in through the last stitch, in through a new one, and pull your loop through the last 2 loops, all the way down to the end. So that first row does take a bit of patience getting through the loops. This is what the side you saw as you were working. The correct side is the other side, where you have kind of a double stitch look. And that's what we want for the front side. So next row is a double crochet row. I'm going to chain 1 and a second one, and I'm going to turn, and I'm going to put a double crochet into the back loop only of stitch number 1 and 1 in each stitch thereafter. So just all the way down, simple as, double crochet in the back loop of each stitch. I will meet you back at the end. Here at the end, instead of working the back loop only, I'm going to work both loops with my last double crochet. That's row 2. So back to row 1 of the repeats. So it's row 1 and 2 over and over again, but I'll just do this next row again just to show you what it looks like. This is the front. So when you're looking at the work doing a double crochet row, that's your front, and you're working your slip stitch rows on the back. so that you get the correct look on the front. That makes sense. So again, I'm going to turn with a chain, and I'm going to work that chain just for my first slip stitch. So in through those loops, pull back the first loop, in through the first actual stitch, pull back another loop, and then just pull that loop carefully through to slip stitch. So old spot, new spot, slip stitch. Old spot, new spot, slip stitch. All the way down to the end. Gets a little easier once you've got a little bit of fabric to hold on to at this end. So I've just come back after doing a little bit to show you what it looks like. We've got like the double braid of the slip stitch row to start. The double crochet row sits slightly back, and then you've got the double braid again at the front there for that last row. So just keep working those 2 rows over and over until you get the width that you want. For the width of the panel, measure from the very edge of one shoulder across to the very edge of the other. Add on 20 centimetres to allow for a 10 centimetre overhang on either side. I have my full panel width, and you need to end on a slip stitch row the same way as you started. So for me, just for my numbers, I'm a European size medium roughly. I've worked 65 stitches down, starting with a slip stitch row, working 31 slip stitch rows in total and 30 double crochet rows in between. As I say, you want to make sure you end on a slip stitch row or after a slip stitch row. Next, I'm going to work a row of single crochet across the top. I've just cut my yarn from where I left off over here, and I've reattached over here because I want my work facing towards me while I work the single crochet row. Okay, my yarn is attached. I'm going to chain 1 just to build up my yarn. I'm going to go in through between the 2 sort of braid things there and work a single crochet. Excuse my little knot there. Then I'm going to into the double crochet row. I've got the chain 2 here, and I'm going to work 2 single crochet into that chain 2 spot, or around that chain 2 chain. 1 in one side, 1 in the other. And then again, I'm onto a slip stitch row, so just head right between your 2 stitches and single crochet. Double is 1 either side of the chain. 2. So again, in between for 1 on the slip stitch row, 2 for the double crochet, and just work that way the whole way across. All edged up, I've left a little bit of a tail for sewing, and I've cut my yarn. I'm going to work a very small seam across the top of each shoulder. But first of all, you need 2 identical panels, so go ahead and make a second one exactly the same way, and then we'll join the 2. For the seams, you're only seaming up the 10 centimetre overhang that you worked on either side, leaving the shoulder to shoulder measurement open in the middle. So as mentioned, I'm going to work a tiny little seam. For me, it's just 9 stitches from the edge to the inside here on either shoulder. And I'm going to work a mattress stitch, work whichever seam you prefer. As I say, I'm going to do the mattress stitch, and that means just joining with a flat seam. I'm just going to butt the 2 ends together so that I can do that. If you're working another type of seam, then work the inside. So have your 2 right sides facing each other on the inside when you work your seam. But the mattress stitch, you sort of butt the 2 ends side by side. So here I have my 2 ends. The seam that I'm going to work is just here. And I've got my yarn threaded into a needle. So I'm going to go in through stitch number 1 on side number 1. It's going up the stitch, over on side number 2, up from bottom to top through both loops of the stitch, and pull that through. Just get rid of that tail end for a minute. Stitch number 2, up through on side number 1. Stitch number 2 up through on side number 2, and that's all there is to it. So it's kind of like you're lacing up a shoe and you're just swapping sides, going from bottom to top through both loops of each stitch on each side. And then periodically, there's only 9 stitches, but periodically normally you just pull it a little bit, keeping hold of the bottom bit so you can't pucker it, and just tighten it up. So stitch to stitch from my 9, and just seam up this little tiny seam here. At the end, just work a little knot and cut your yarn, whatever you've got left. So that's number 8 and number 8. And then I've got number 9 and number 9. Just pull it. Make sure that's nice and taut, but not puckered. You can sort of stretch it back out a bit if you've gone too tight. I'll just get rid of these guys. And as I say, just work a little knot. And I'm not weaving the ending yet, so I just like to finish before I weave in ends. So I'll just leave that end on and I'll weave it later. I'll work my side seams in a little while, but while I've got the camera set up, I'm just going to film this next section. I'm here at the top, at the opening here, and I'm just joining my yarn in the middle here. Back and front are both the same at this point, but now from here on, this is going to be the back because I'm going to work a seam ultimately at this point here. So I'm going to chain out 12, so that counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12, and an extra one to turn. I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, so starting from chain number 2, I'm going to work the back bumps. So top loops, back bumps, in through the back bump of chain number 2, because I've got the turn chain. I'm going to leave that unworked this time. And just work a regular slip stitch. In through the next chain, back bump, and regular slip stitch. And just work that way the whole way down for the whole 12 stitches. Here's my 12 slip stitches. Here at the base, I'm going to slip stitch into the edge here once. Closes that row that I've just worked. A second time opens up a fresh row, and I'm going to pivot around so I can work back up this section here. So I've just worked 2 slip stitches, so skip over those 2. Here's stitch number 1 in reality. I'm going to go in through the back loop of stitch number 1. Whoops, I'm going to drop my yarn. Pivot again. So again, skip the 2 slip stitches, back loop of stitch number 1 proper, and slip stitch. And then slip stitch all the way up into the back loops only. At the top, chain 1 and turn, and it's more of the same. From stitch number 1, back loop stitch, slip stitches. All the way down to the bottom. And when you get to the bottom, at the base, slip stitch once to close this row, slip stitch a second time to open a new row, turn, skip over your 2 slip stitches, and back loop slip stitch all the way back out to the end again. And you're just going to do that on repeat all the way around, and you'll go all the way around this top edge until you get right back to here. I've worked all the way around with my slip stitch rows, the top edge here, and I've just got to join up the 2 sides. I'm going to do that by working a last slip stitch row up to the end, and I'm going to work the back loops again on both sides this time and just work a back loop slip stitch row. Quick demo on the seam here. I'm just holding the 2 sides together. I'm going to go for the back loop on the side I was just working, the back loop on the start chain, and slip stitch. I'm going to do that the whole way down, stitch for stitch. Okay, that's all seamed up, and using the back loop slip stitch, we've created a very stretchy band that's going to keep your top where it's supposed to be. Next, we need to work up a sleeve. The sleeve is worked in rows going lengthwise, so you're going to attach your yarn, work a chain out for the length of your sleeve, keep working rows, and whilst doing so, attaching around the arm opening area as you did with the top area by slip stitching. And then once you've gone all the way around, seam up the underside of the sleeve and then carry that seam on down the side here. So here on the other side, I've just marked out the width of my sleeve, count the number of stitches, count them down the back, and just put a marker on the side for each. Ideally, between here and here, you need a multiple of 3 plus 1 stitches. I didn't actually count them up in that way. I just counted just the width. I just eyeballed the width that I needed and then just made sure I was at the same point on the other side. I think I ended up with an extra stray stitch, which I just slip stitched at the end to clear out. So as I say, attach your yarn on one side and you're working in an anti-clockwise direction with these slip stitches, working from the inside. So I've worked my chain out. I have worked my slip stitch row back in, and I'm going to slip stitch now on the inside of the arm opening. I'm just going to take out this marker because I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Okay, so this is the stitch I've joined into. This is the next stitch along, and I'm working into the back. So I've got the 2 fronts of the stitches here, and I turn onto the back, and I'm just going to slip stitch into the back of the next stitch along. So that's 1 to close that row. I need 1 and 2 to open a double crochet row, and then I'm going to turn, skip over those 3 slip stitches that I've just worked, and work a double crochet row back up. So once you're out at the end, you're just going to chain 1 and work back with the slip stitch row exactly the same way as you did for the body section. And then at the base here, slip stitch 1 to close the slip stitch row, slip stitch 2 more times to open the double crochet row, and back you go, skipping over those 3 slip stitches before you start your first stitch. You're just going to continue working up and over the shoulder, down the back side, just doing exactly the same thing over and over. And then once you've gone all the way around, seam up the underside of the sleeve and then carry that seam on down the side here. Here, using a yarn needle, I worked the same mattress stitch seam that you saw me work on the shoulders. Of course, use any seaming method that you prefer. After that, weave away any stray ends and you're all done.